The stars above the Zarathi royal palace were always bright. They burned like silent witnesses, watching the powerful and the weak move below. Inside the palace, thousands of glowing lamps floated gently in the air, lighting the grand hall where suitors from every corner of the galaxy had once walked with pride. Now, the hall was almost empty. Queen Licara sat on her floating throne, her silver crown resting lightly against her pale forehead. Her skin shimmered softly, almost translucent, and her thin arms trembled as she tried to hold herself upright. Her body had been damaged during the Great Rift War. Many called her broken. Some called her cursed. No one called her powerful anymore. She was the youngest queen the Zarathi Dominion had ever crowned. A genius with numbers, a master of strategy, a sharp mind wrapped in a weak shell. For years, her advisors had begged other royal houses to join her through a political union, a marriage that would protect their small but wealthy star kingdom. But each time the suitors arrived, they saw her sitting quietly on her throne, and their smiles faded. "She is weak," they whispered. "She cannot rule for long. She cannot even walk without help." And then they left. Licara had heard these words too many times. She never showed her pain. The queen of the Zarathi Dominion did not cry. But when the suitors were gone and the hall grew quiet, she often stared at the stars above the glass roof and wondered if power without respect meant anything at all. Far from the throne, in a small docking bay on the palace moon, a human ship landed with a low hum. It was not a royal cruiser. It was not shiny or golden. It was small, gray, and built to last. Captain Adrian Holt stepped out first. His black boots hit the ground with a steady rhythm. He wasn't a nobleman, not even close. He was a soldier once, now a diplomat, though his uniform still carried the discipline of old wars. The Zarathi guards didn't bow to him. Humans were new to galactic politics. To most alien powers, they were just upstarts, not powerful, not rich, just noisy creatures from a blue world at the edge of the spiral arm. Adrian didn't care. He had come to do a job, sign a trade agreement, and leave. He had no idea he would meet a queen. Inside the palace, the air shimmered faintly with Zarathi perfume. It smelled like silver rain and cold wind. Adrian followed a floating drone through long hallways, his eyes moving across murals that showed Zarathi history. Battles won. Empires built. Queens crowned. Then, the drone stopped in front of two giant crystal doors. Captain Holt had said in a soft musical voice, "Her Majesty will see you now." The doors opened slowly. Licara's floating throne turned to face him. Her eyes, bright silver with star-like dots inside, studied the human like he was something unexpected. Adrian saluted out of habit, then gave a small nod. "Your Majesty, you are human," she said. Her voice was soft but sharp like a blade wrapped in silk. "I've been told that's true," Adrian answered with a small smile. He knew enough to be polite, but not enough to bow like some royal puppet. One of her advisors, a tall alien with bright blue horns, whispered something in Licara's ear. She nodded slowly, then turned her gaze back to Adrian. "You are not a suitor," she said. "No," Adrian replied. "I'm here for trade talks. My people want to buy and sell things with yours, simple." A flicker of something, maybe amusement, crossed her face. "Everyone else who comes here wants my throne. You only want business. That makes you different." In the shadows above the hall, dozens of silent watchers observed. Every major house in the Dominion had spies. They wanted to know if the Queen would ever find someone willing to bind with her. The Zarathi bond was not just marriage. It was a merging of power, physical, legal, and political. Whoever became her partner would rule beside her, but the truth was cruel. No one wanted to bond with a queen who might not survive another war. The queen's treasury was massive. Old Zarathi starforges still produced wealth, but even a fortune could not hide the fact that her health was failing. Or so they thought. After the official meeting ended, Licara did something she hadn't done in years. She invited the human to stay for tea. Adrian was surprised, but he accepted. They moved to a smaller room with glass walls, showing the stars outside. Licara's throne adjusted so she could sit lower, closer to eye level with him. For a moment she looked less like a queen and more like a tired young woman. "Do humans think I am weak too?" she asked quietly. Adrian took a slow breath. He wasn't good at lying. "I don't know you," he said. But I don't decide strength by how straight someone stands. I decide by how long they keep standing. Her lips curved into a tiny, real smile. You speak plainly. I like that. Outside the palace walls, rumors spread fast. Word had reached the outer systems that the queen was offering her fortune, a starforge's worth of wealth, to any suitor who would bond with her. Still, no one had accepted. The Draith clan said it was a trap. The Riksha Confederacy said she was dying. The Vorthan Empire simply laughed. Why would anyone tie themselves to a fading queen? They whispered. But Adrian Holt, the human, didn't know those whispers. He saw only a tired but sharp-eyed woman who looked at the stars like she was planning something. That night, while the palace slept, Likara sat in her private chamber, surrounded by data crystals. Her fingers danced weakly across glowing panels. She was calculating, planning, moving pieces across a galactic board only she understood. She had secrets. The first was her hidden starforge, a relic from the age when the Zarathi were conquerors. No one in the galaxy, not even her closest counselors, knew it still worked. The second was her plan. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a partner, someone not bound by old noble rules. Someone clever enough to stand beside her, not above her. Humans were new, unpredictable, untamed. That made them dangerous, but it also made them useful. The next morning, Adrian walked through the palace gardens. The air smelled clean, and crystal flowers opened to the sunlight. He had been in many alien capitals before, but none as quiet as this. Zarathi people moved like water, graceful, elegant, silent. He saw the queen again, floating slowly along the garden path. 2 attendants walked beside her, ready to help if needed. When she saw Adrian, she waved them away. I want to walk alone, she said. They hesitated. Your Majesty, go, she ordered softly. She turned to Adrian. Walk with me, human. They moved slowly through the crystal garden. She asked him about Earth, about oceans, about human wars, about why humans kept fighting even when they were outnumbered. Adrian didn't glorify anything. He just told her the truth. We fight because we don't like being told to kneel. We fight because we're stubborn. Likara's gaze sharpened. Stubborn, she repeated. That might be useful. A sudden sound cut through the air and a flash of blue light. A tiny drone exploded near the queen. Adrian reacted before thinking. He threw himself between her and the blast, pulling her floating chair back. The shockwave sent shards of crystal scattering like sharp rain. Guards rushed in. Alarms screamed. Someone had tried to kill the queen. Hours later, after the attack was contained, Likara sat in a secure chamber. Adrian stood nearby, his jacket torn, a cut across his arm. You didn't have to do that, she said softly. Yeah, Adrian muttered. But I did. Something changed in her eyes then, not pity. Not curiosity, respect. Most suitors would have run, she said. I'm not a suitor, Adrian answered. I know, Likara whispered. Maybe that's why you're still here. The morning after the attack, the palace was no longer quiet. Security drones buzzed through the halls like angry hornets. The royal guard stood in every corner with shining spears and glowing shields. Whispers filled the corridors like cold wind. Someone had tried to kill the queen. Likara sat in the high council chamber, her throne floating a few inches above the marble floor. Her crown was slightly tilted, her silver eyes sharp. Around her stood the advisors, proud, nervous, suspicious. We must increase security at once, said Councillor Vereen, the one with bright blue horns. And we must cancel all talks with outsiders. One of them may be the reason for this attack. Another advisor added, especially the humans. They are unknown. We cannot trust them. Likara said nothing at first. She listened as they argued. Some wanted to hide, some wanted to fight, some wanted to flee, but none of them had a real plan. Finally, she raised her hand. The room fell silent. The humans are not our enemies, she said quietly. Last night, one of them saved my life. The advisors exchanged uneasy looks. Adrian Holt stood at the edge of the chamber. He wasn't wearing royal clothes. His arm was still bandaged, but he didn't look nervous. He stood like a soldier who had already faced worse things. Likara turned toward him. Captain Holt, I want you to stay in the palace as my guest. The council exploded in protests. This is madness. He is a stranger. He is human. But Likara didn't flinch. Then let him prove what he is. Later that day, Adrian followed Lycara through a long corridor that led deep below the palace. There were no guards here, only soft lights on smooth walls. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To a place no one else knows," she answered. The corridor opened into a hidden chamber filled with old machines. Giant rings floated in the air, slowly spinning. In the center, a massive cube of glowing metal pulsed like a heart. Adrian's eyes widened. "What is this?" "This," she said softly, "is the Starforge. It is the source of the Zarathi fortune." Adrian stepped closer. He could feel the air hum around the machine. It was ancient, powerful, probably worth more than entire star systems. "No one knows this still works," she said. "The Council believes it was destroyed in the war, but I kept it hidden." Adrian looked at her, surprised. "Why are you showing me this?" Lycara floated a little lower, so her gaze met his. "Because I need someone who is not part of their old games. Someone who doesn't see me as weak. Someone who can help me build something new." For the first time, Adrian began to understand the truth. The Queen wasn't helpless. She was planning something big. "Every noble house wants my throne," she continued. "They do not see a queen. They see a broken woman with a treasure. They want to control me. But if I bond with one of them, I will lose everything. The Starforge will be theirs." "And you'll be a prisoner on your own throne," Adrian said quietly. She nodded. "But if I bond with someone who doesn't want the throne? Someone who wants an alliance, not power." "You're thinking about humans," Adrian said. "Yes," she answered simply. "Your people are strong. Not in the way the galaxy expects. You build fast. You adapt fast. You do not bow." Adrian crossed his arms. "And what exactly are you offering?" Lycara's silver eyes shone like tiny stars. "Half of everything. A true alliance. Humans will not serve the Zarathi. They will stand beside us." Above ground, the palace buzzed with rumors. News of the attack had spread to the other star systems. Rival houses smelled weakness. They began to move their fleets closer, pretending it was for protection. Ambassadors sent fake kind words but hidden threats. "The Queen needs protection," they said. "She should bond with a stronger house." The council grew more divided. "She must bond with the Draith," said one. "No, the Riksha Confederacy has more ships," said another. "She must bond with someone soon," they all agreed. But the Queen refused to choose any of them. In the training courtyard of the palace, Adrian watched the Zarathi royal guard practice with their elegant, slow movements. It was beautiful but too soft, too predictable. When the guards saw him, some laughed. "The human is watching like a lost animal," one said. Adrian didn't answer. He stepped onto the practice ground. "Show me your defense drills," he said. The captain of the guard smirked. "You think you can fight like us?" "No," Adrian said. "I can fight like me." In minutes, the training ground changed. The humans didn't fight with grace. They fought with speed, angles, and stubbornness. Adrian didn't overpower them, but he surprised them with tricks they weren't ready for, stepping where they didn't expect, using their long movements against them. By the end of the session, half the royal guard was on the floor, blinking in shock. Adrian offered a hand to the captain. "Next time," he said simply. The guards didn't laugh anymore. They respected him, and Lycara, watching from the balcony, smiled for the first time in many months. That night, Lycara called a private meeting with Adrian. The stars shone through the glass ceiling above the strategy room. A map of nearby star systems glimmered in front of them. She pointed to 3 glowing red systems. "The Draith are moving their ships here. The Riksha here. The Vorthan fleet is here. They are closing in. They are preparing to force you to bond," Adrian said. "Yes," she replied. "If I say no, they will say I am unfit to rule. They will take the throne. And your people? Some will follow them. Some will fight. Many will die." Her voice didn't shake, but the weight in her eyes was clear. Adrian leaned forward. "What's your plan?" She took a slow breath. "I want to make a move they will never expect." The next day, the council gathered again. The nobles from other houses sent their representatives. Rich clothes, cold smiles, sweet lies. They all expected Lycara to bend, but when she floated into the chamber, she was calm. Her voice rang through the hall. "I will not bond with the Draith," she said. Murmurs rose. "I will not bond with the Riksha or the Vorthan." Gasps echoed. "I will bond with a human." The chamber exploded in noise. Nobles shouted. Advisors begged. Ambassadors stood up in anger. A human? One spat. They are not royal. They have no fleets. Another hissed. They are nothing. Licara lifted her hand. Silence fell. Humans saved my life when others waited for me to fall. Humans do not want my throne. They want a future, and so do I. Adrian stood at the side, his heart pounding. He hadn't agreed to bond with her yet. But in that moment he saw what she was doing. She was changing the game, turning her weakness into strength. After the meeting, Adrian followed her into a quiet hallway. You could have told me before you announced it, he said, half amused. She tilted her head slightly. Would you have said yes if I asked first? Adrian paused. I don't know. Then I didn't want to give you a chance to say no, she replied, almost smiling. He shook his head. You're dangerous, Your Majesty. I know, she said softly. That's why I will win. While the nobles argued, the palace engineers, under the Queen's secret command, began waking the Starforge's outer systems. Old machines came to life after 100 years of silence. Energy pulsed through hidden tunnels beneath the palace. No one knew except Licara and Adrian. And as the hum of the forge filled the air, Adrian understood her vision. She wasn't begging anyone for help. She was building power quietly. She wanted an ally who could fight beside her, not control her. A week later, the rival houses made their move. The Draith fleet entered Zarathi space to secure stability. The Riksha sent peacekeepers. The Vorthon sent their elite guard. It was a soft invasion, not with guns, but with pressure. The council panicked. We must surrender the throne, one shouted. They will destroy us, cried another, but Licara remained calm. She sent messages to every ship, every leader. The Zarathi throne is not open for negotiation, she said. I have chosen my bond, and with it a new future. In the quiet of the war room, Adrian stood beside her. Outside the palace, alien fleets surrounded the system like wolves. Do you trust me? Licara asked. Adrian looked at her. A queen who was supposed to be weak but who had turned her silence into strategy. Yes, he said simply. She reached out her hand. Not a royal command, not a trick. A real choice. Adrian took it. All across the galaxy, news spread like wildfire. The Zarathi queen chooses a human bond. Some laughed. Some called it madness. But a few saw what it really was. A move no one had predicted. A small human ship against fleets of ancient empires. A broken queen against powerful houses. But both had something the others didn't. Surprise and determination. In the middle of the night, as the stars shimmered above the quiet palace, Adrian and Licara stood together on the balcony. Below them, the Starforge hummed softly like a sleeping beast about to wake. They think we are weak, she said. Good, Adrian answered. That means they won't see us coming. The palace sky was dark, but it was not night. It was the shadow of enemy fleets gathering in orbit. The red glow of the Draith battleships painted the stars. Riksha frigates circled like hungry vultures. The Vorthon cruisers blocked every route out. Every noble house that had once ignored Licara now wanted her throne. Inside the royal command chamber, maps of the system flickered on a giant screen. Blue dots were Zarathi ships, far fewer than the red and gold ones of the enemy. But at the center, glowing bright like a sun, was the Starforge. Adrian stood beside Licara. He wasn't wearing his diplomat's jacket anymore. He had changed into a dark suit of light armor. His sleeves were rolled up and his face was calm. They outnumber us 5-1, said one of the Zarathi commanders. We can't win. Licara's silver eyes didn't blink. Then we must not fight their way, she said softly. The council had already fractured. Some members had fled, leaving their seats empty. Others begged her to surrender. But the queen didn't move from her throne. She had made her choice. Activate the Starforge, she commanded. The room went silent. Your Majesty, a nervous engineer whispered. The forge hasn't been fully powered in decades. If it fails, it won't fail, she said. Below the palace, deep underground, the ancient machine began to wake. Energy pulsed through every tunnel, every metal wall. The floor trembled as if the planet itself was breathing. Blue light rose from the ground like rivers of stars. As the forge awakened, Adrian walked to the balcony overlooking the central city. The people of Zarath gathered in the streets, their faces pale with fear. Children clung to their parents and merchants whispered prayers to old gods. Adrian wasn't a king. He wasn't born royal, but he raised his voice anyway. "Your queen stands for you," he shouted. "She will not kneel. Neither should you." The sound carried through hidden speakers. The people looked up. And for the first time in years, they heard something different. Not fear. Not pity. Defiance. The queen floated out onto the balcony beside him. She didn't look like a fragile ruler now. The light of the forge surrounded her like a crown of stars. "My people," she said softly. "They call me weak. They say we are finished. But they are wrong. We are Zarathi. We have forgotten our strength. It is time to remember." The crowd grew louder. Murmurs turned to chants, and the fear slowly began to burn away. Far above, on the bridge of a Draith battleship, the enemy fleet commanders watched with cold amusement. "She thinks speeches will save her," one growled. "She has nothing," another sneered. But then they saw it. A column of blue light shot up from the palace and stretched into orbit. Energy readings spiked across every scanner. "What is that?" "Impossible. That forge was supposed to be dead. It's alive." The Zarathi Starforge was awake. Inside the command chamber, the blue glow spread across the star map. Zarathi ships that had been dark and quiet suddenly lit up with new energy. Their weak shields grew brighter. Their engines roared. Systems that had been offline for years powered up in seconds. "We've boosted the fleet's energy output by 300%, the engineer cried. "Our shields are stronger than ever." Lykara turned to Adrian. "We won't fight like them," she said. "We'll fight like us." The first enemy ships moved in, expecting no resistance. Instead, they were met by a wall of blue light. Zarathi ships, small but fast, moved with strange precision. It wasn't brute strength. It was speed, angles, and human strategy. Adrian had worked with the Zarathi captains all night. He had taught them how to fight dirty, not with dishonor, but with cunning. Surprise ambushes, hidden formations, unexpected maneuvers. "They think like nobles," Adrian had told them. "We'll think like survivors." Now it was paying off. The Draith cruisers expected a slow defense. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by tiny Zarathi corvettes, hitting from places no one expected. The Vorten ships tried to block escape routes, but the Starforge had powered new warp gates hidden inside the asteroid belt. Zarathi ships appeared behind them, attacking their blind spots. "This isn't a war," one enemy commander hissed. "It's a trap." Back in the palace, Lykara controlled the forge with delicate movements. Her thin hands glided over the glowing console. Her body might have been weak, but her mind danced like fire. She directed energy flows with the skill of a conductor leading a grand symphony. Adrian watched her work. He realized then, this was why she had never chosen another house. No noble would have trusted her to lead. They would have taken the forge from her hands, but she was the heart of Zarath, and the forge was answering only to her. The battle grew fierce. The enemy still had more ships, but they were confused. Humans had taught the Zarathi to fight like shadows. Hit fast, vanish, hit again. In one corner of the battlefield, a Draith dreadnought opened fire, but its cannons hit nothing but empty space. A small Zarathi strike team appeared from behind and disabled its engines in seconds. The rickshaw frigates tried to attack the palace directly, but their scanners couldn't lock on. Adrian's idea that a simple human trick was working. Dozens of reflective satellites surrounded the palace, scattering their targeting signals. "They can't see us," laughed one young Zarathi pilot. "They can't hit what they can't see." As the enemy lines weakened, panic spread through their command channels. Nobles who had once laughed at the queen now whispered to each other in fear. "She is not weak," one said. "She planned this," another realized. "She used the humans, but they were wrong. She hadn't used anyone. She had chosen someone." Inside the palace, the last wave of enemy troops tried to land near the throne room. Adrian led a small team of Zarathi guards through the marble halls. They were outnumbered but not outsmarted. Adrian had prepared choke points and traps. Nothing deadly, just clever false walls, light illusions, misdirecting paths. The enemy forces ended up chasing ghosts while the real defense stood untouched. Lykara watched the live feed calmly. "Stubborn," she whispered. "I was right about them." Hours passed. The battle that was supposed to be a quick invasion turned into chaos for the enemy. Their great houses argued among themselves. Their fleets fell out of formation. And then, the Starforge released its final pulse. A wave of blue energy swept through the system. It didn't destroy anything. It simply cut the enemy ships off from their power cores. Ancient Zarathi technology had always been more advanced than they realized. The fleets went silent. Engines dimmed. Weapons shut down. On the palace balcony, Licara raised her head proudly. "The throne is not for sale," she said softly to the stars. "Not anymore." When the dust settled, the enemy houses were forced to retreat. They had no choice. A queen they had called broken had defeated 3 empires without a single surrender. Crowds filled the streets again, not in fear this time, but in celebration. Zarathi flags flew high, bells rang across the capital, and in the center of the balcony, Adrian stood beside Licara as her partner, not her owner, not her savior, but her equal, in the great hall. The council returned, their faces pale. They bowed low, not out of fear but respect. Licara didn't need their approval anymore. She had her people. One counselor whispered, "You have changed everything, my queen." She looked at Adrian. "No," she said softly. "We changed everything." The following days became a legend. Human engineers worked beside Zarathi technicians to rebuild the fleet. Trade ships came not with demands but with offers. The great houses that once mocked them now sent cautious ambassadors. For the first time in history, humans had a royal seat in the Galactic Council. Not through power, but through courage, stubbornness, and unexpected brilliance. One evening, as the sun set over the crystal towers of Zerath, Licara and Adrian stood on the balcony again. The blue glow of the Starforge shimmered like a river beneath their feet. "Do you regret your choice?" Adrian asked softly. She shook her head. "I chose a future, not a throne. I chose someone who saw me, not my weakness. And I chose a queen who didn't need saving," he replied. For a moment, the galaxy felt very quiet. News spread through every corner of the stars. The humans, the upstarts from the edge of the spiral arm, had stood beside a disabled queen and defied empires. They hadn't done it with the biggest ships or the richest armies. They had done it with heart. And the nobles who once laughed began to whisper a new phrase with unease and awe. Never underestimate humans. Years later, history would remember that day not just as a battle, but as the moment the galaxy shifted. The queen who was never chosen became the queen who chose herself, and the human no one expected became the man who changed everything without wearing a crown. Under the stars, Licara and Adrian stood side by side. Not conquerors, not rulers of others, but partners who had built a future where weakness became strength and hope became power.